Hello everybody, Slothalopolis here with the Average Gamer Guys, bringing you some Halo Wars 2 stuff today. We just got the update with Jerome and the Arbiter here just a couple days ago, and I have been doing some playtesting. I wanted to see some different strategies and stuff for Blitz. I've been using both Commander Jerome, who is really cool. The ability to pump out some high energy Spartans and just have Spartans all over the field is amazing. But I do need a little bit more time to play test him before I feel comfortable kind of putting out a deck that I really enjoy. Whoops. However, the Arbiter I do have a deck that I really do enjoy. He is insanely fun to play with. The ability and the starting army and the special cards that the Arbiter gets are going to be really cool. So you'll actually see here I actually have two decks set up. The second one is the first one I'm going to show you. It's the second one on this list here. It's the one I'm going to kind of go through in detail, and we're going to kind of talk about. I will show you the other one, just as kind of another uh, little less viable, but still really fun strategy that kind of uses a different linchpin. But I'm going to try to go through a little bit quickly on these just to not take up too much of your time here. But this is my preferred deck for the Arbiter. You'll see there's a little bit of focus on the low end and the real high end. The Arbiter himself, as far as his exclusive cards, are going to kind of mimic that. He has a lot of low energy and a lot of high energy, and what you kind of need to do, I feel like, with the Arbiter is to pump out these generic banished units that any of these banished leaders can have for your mid-range. So the first thing you'll see right off the bat is we're going to have two 40 energy infantry units. So we have the elite enforcers who on the field are awesome. They have these plasma cannons that spit out consistent damage that is honestly more than I thought it was going to be. Doc and I always do these unit comparisons. If you haven't checked them out, we'll do another one here soon. We do it every time we get an update and we get new units and new cards, and we kind of do a comparison of time to kill different units versus different things, and health versus energy consumption and all that stuff. I'm really excited to see the numbers on these elite enforcers because they're 40 energy, they're super cheap, they have pretty good range, and I feel like their damage output is really good, especially for the amount of energy you put into them. Speaking for the amount of energy you put into them, we have Prowling Grunts now. These grunts are cloaked, and that is just a crazy dangerous combo. You're actually forcing the other team to bring in something that has detect just to take out this 40 energy unit of yours. And that is actually kind of the coolest part for me. It's not just that they do decent damage. They kind of do low and slow kind of damage that's a little bit more consistent. They're never gonna wipe a bunch of things out just by sheer firepower, but they do put out a lot of damage, and you force the other team to focus on you and to bring in something to take those units out, because nobody likes to just sit there and have their units just get constantly plinked down by a prowling unit. So we've seen that a lot with the shipmaster, because he's a frustrating one to play against sometimes. So bringing in a couple different cloaking options is going to be really good for the Arbiter as well. The engineer is always there. It always needs to be. I think it explains itself. I won't spend time on it. But bring yourself in a way to heal. The next card I have is the Conduit of Rage, which boosts the target's damage, healing, and speed, and playing other powers increases the buff's duration. Now that second part of that is probably an area that I could do a little bit better on. I could play another leader power and increase this duration a little bit better than I probably do, because as you're going to see, my next leader power is Stasis. And my only other one besides those two is way down at the end, and it's a very expensive power. So I don't really take advantage of the ability to increase that duration, and that's probably something I can do better, and probably something I can tweak with this deck. But the base usage of this card is actually really good. I'm actually really impressed with it. And you can combine it with a couple different things. You can combine it with the Arbiter, especially if he's using his ability that we'll talk about here in a bit, which is super scary. That just kind of adds fuel onto that fire. A blood fuel locust that's doing increased damage and healing itself better is dang near unkillable unless you just throw a ton of units at it and stuff. So this is actually a really nice card, again, especially at 60 energy. The energy consumption for the Arbiter can be extremely low, and that's something that I actually really appreciate about him. Blood fuel locust, again, just like the engineer, it explains itself. It's there. It's usually in every banished deck just because you're not going to find a better card at 80 energy for the damage output and the range and so on and so forth. So I'll kind of skip over that one as well. So the Phantom. Now, if you've played it all with Jerome, the Phantom is basically the aerial version of the Mastodon. It is a mobile garrison unit, so the Phantom can actually hold 3 infantry units inside of it, and its damage output goes up as it gets units inside, and that is the really cool part. So it does have a little bit of damage output by itself. Honestly, it's not fantastic, it's not great, but when you start adding units into it, like the Prowling Grunts and these elite enforcers especially, who have these crazy cannons, it's amazing. It's super, super great. So this is actually a unit that I did not think I would enjoy. I did not think that I would probably use, but really utilizing that garrison effect is awesome. And having so many low energy units, or low energy cards, I guess I should say, it makes it really easy to get back to those cards. Because I might not want to put my Prowling Grunts in that Phantom right away. I might want to use the actual Prowling portion of their ability and really get the most use out of that card. And after it runs out of cloak, sure, I'll throw it in the Phantom. So I may want to cycle through some cards and get back to more infantry. I honestly have not found myself wanting to just be able to pump out more infantry, so that's actually why I only have the 2 infantry that I'm going to want to put inside the Phantom. But I mean, that is a viable option if you want to throw some more infantry in there to kind of tweak that. That is a decent option that you could play. The other leader power I have that's going to be how should I say, responsibly priced, is the Stasis, which traps all units in a temporary impenetrable prison. Trapped units cannot capture zones. This is awesome. This is actually really, really nice. It's sort of like Decimus's power to be able to prevent enemies from running away, but to be able to trap them and be able to encircle them or get ready to throw down another heavier damage dealing leader power is really nice. And that second portion of that, where it does not allow these trapped units to capture zones, that is a lifesaver if used correctly. You know, especially if there's a fight on B, the game is getting close and the other guy is just kind of trying to pester you and keep that point in contest instead of being owned by you, so that he can kind of to get more points there to close out the game. Those kind of things are really, really nice. Obviously that's really situational, but it has a lot of broad uses as well. So I actually really enjoy the Stasis. It's one that I think could probably get a lot of use out of pretty much any deck that you're going to run with the Arbiter. The Suicide Grunt is very similar to the Engineer and the Blood Fuel Locust. Use it. Always use it. So is the Prowling Reaver. Any kind of deck that I'm going to run with the Banished, it's going to have an Engineer, it's going to have a Blood Fuel Locust, it's going to have Suicide Grunts, and it's going to have a Prowling Reaver. Every single time. Those are just, they're such good, versatile units that always do what you ask them. And that is really nice. The Blisterback, a little bit less of that, but still very reliable and usually in a lot of decks. I would make the argument that there are a lot more options that you could do that don't have the Blisterback compared to the other 4 that we just listed. The other 4 are usually always there. There's usually not an argument that I have to pull them out. Now, Mass Cloaking is the one that I was not going to put in here. 200 energy is incredibly substantial for a leader power. And I saw that first word, and I saw temporarily, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Because that's a lot of energy to devote to something temporary. But temporarily siphons and cloaks all allied units and increases their speed. So I left this in because I thought, all right, I'll give this a shot. My energy curve is actually pretty low. That we'll actually check that out here in just a moment. Energy curve is really low, so you know what? I'll put this card in the deck and I'll let the energy curve kind of go up a little bit, and I'll see what I can do there. Now, if it were just cloaking, that would be one thing. But Siphon throws this over the top, especially if you have a big army fight. One big army against one big army, you are going to win that fight with mass cloaking. Usually, I mean, you're gonna get point refunds for losing cards, or if the fight is later in the game, you're probably going to have a lot of energy running anyway. And especially since you don't have a bunch of different cards that have high energy consumption with the Arbiter, you're probably going to have a greater chance of being able to hold on to a lot of energy, not even really meaning to, honestly. This has been my experience, is I kind of use so many of these lower energy cards, before I know it, I have energy coming out of my ears, and I'm like, holy crap, I need to spend all this. And this mass cloaking halfway through a fight, and that temporarily, it lasts a long time. It's probably going to last to the end of that fight 9 out of 10 times. And having that siphon ability so that you're getting all of your health back and you're not taking damage at the same time because you're cloaked, it's unfair. It's insane. It's really good. So even if that mass cloaking runs out and the fight is back on, your hero unit was almost dead, guess what, man? He just got siphoned for the last 12, 15 seconds, whatever it is. We'll do some testing on that when we do unit comparisons as well. But if you get 12 seconds worth of siphon off while you were cloaked, you're gonna win that fight. I cannot talk this card up enough in my experiences with it. I love this thing. I never thought I would use it because the energy consumption is so high, but it's really, really good. And especially with the way this deck is set up, you can afford it. I mean, you know, you have 120 energy on that blister back, 90 on the Prowling Reaver, and then I mean you're going 80s, 60s, 50, and then 40. There's just not a ton of things that are going to eat up a bunch of energy, and it's going to leave you open to be able to use your mass cloaking. The other thing that you are going to have that's going to consume a lot of energy is your hero card. Usually we have the hero card, especially one like this. The Arbiter was an absolute nightmare and a headache to deal with in the first Halo Wars. I hated playing against him. He just felt so unfair, and he gets that same ability in Halo Wars 2. You see it there, the Y ability, Arbiter's Rage, increases damage and speed and allows the Arbiter to attack air units. This gives him so much versatility. The ability to go up and hit those air units, especially if you have that rush ability. I've had twice now where I'm going up against double vultures. I can pop that Arbiter down. I don't have to worry about combat fatigue. I immediately pop his Y ability, and since I popped it down behind the vultures, because I could do that because I was just playing that card down, they take a minute to turn around, and vultures are slow anyway, and this Arbiter is just jumping up and he is just whacking away with those two swords, and his damage output is incredibly satisfying to watch. He melts other units. He's like using those energy swords on some butter. It's insane. It's really, really good. And having that damage output on top of that rush ability and on top of that Arbiter's Rage ability, this is probably my favorite leader thus far. He's really good. I never thought I would have somebody overthrow the colony's leader, the colony's hero, I should say, but the Arbiter's doing that for me right now. He is really fun to play against. And the scary thing about him is you will see in the starting army, as we look at the energy slope, you get him as your starting army. You literally get the one unit and that is it, but you get to start with your hero. And his ability to hit any unit on the field, whether it's normally or using his ability, he is really scary to go up against, because early in the game, not many people are gonna have the capability to take him on in a fight at the very beginning of a game. And he's not quite as fast as the honor guard for the shipmaster, but he's close. And he does a lot more damage. I can promise you he does more damage. I know we haven't done the numbers yet or anything like that, but he does more damage. I am willing to bet 20 bucks on it, because he runs through units. So these little starting armies that have some infantry units and things like that, they ain't touching him. And honestly, the Arbiter feels like a really good check, or hard counter, I guess I should say, to the Decimus leader low cost infantry spam. He's a really good counter right now to that Decimus style, because you can sit there and tear those armies up while they're still building, and they don't get to build up these big numbers, so they just kind of overwhelm you with it, because that ability will just tear through them. And especially if you can get an engineer early game and go ahead and pop that engineer and get him running, or maybe a blood fuel locust to kind of pop at the back, to kind of soften things up and stay healed and things like that. And I mean, that's it. I try to keep that Arbiter alive for as long as I can, because he's just really nice. We can do these hit and run tactics. He's my scout, actually, because he's so fast. Kind of, obviously depending on where the power cores drop and all that, but he's really fun to play with. And being able to ensure every single game you will get him because he's in your starting army makes him so much more viable. I don't know how the balancing is going to work, if this is going to stay a starting army option for him consistently. We'll see. I'm sure a lot of people will come up with counters when the time comes. But you can see here on the right, card energy cost. That energy curve is low and slow, baby. We got 2 cards that cost a lot of energy. Everything else is just low and slow. And that's going to be really nice to help save up for different arbiters, or for different mass cloaking opportunities. So that is my favorite deck with the Arbiter. You can use, I'll kind of bring this one up, you can use a little bit better utilization of the Phantom, I think. So you have the Elite Enforcers, the Prowling Grunts. This is actually probably not the best use of Assault Elites. Elite Rangers would be a better option here. So I'll let that save. I do apologize about that. But so we could see Elite Rangers, Elite Enforcers, and Prowling Grunts, and maybe even a Grunt Mob if you would prefer over Prowling Grunts. That might be a good option too, just to be able to throw a ton of units in that Phantom and be able to pump out Phantoms as much as you can, because that Phantom fully loaded is a force to be reckoned with. And even when it goes down, it essentially has the last stand ability, because when that Phantom blows up, it's going to pop 3 infantry units out of it if it's full. And that is going to really keep the fights going and really be able to contest points and things like that. As I talked about before, I always have the Engineer and the Blood Fuel Locust and the Suicide Grunts and the Prowling Reaver, and I do even still have the Blister back in this one. To me, Mass Cloaking plays an even stronger role in this deck than it does in my preferred deck, because you can pump out a ton of units on this, and if you are cloaking 23, 24 units at the same time, that Mass Cloaking gets a great bang for your buck at that point. And that can be really, really nice. And you'll actually see the starting army on this one is a little bit different. It's going to run those different styles of elites, so you can actually immediately pump up that Phantom that you get in that starting army with those 3 infantry units if you so choose, which is actually really cool. The thing that's also worth noting is with that Phantom, if you do fill it up with those infantry units, its special ability actually lets you eject those units out, as you see there. So you can fill it full, and say you need that detect ability from your elites to spot something that's cloaked. Eject all those infantry units out of it, and go ahead and take care of that unit, and then throw those infantry units back in it. which is really nice. Or you can kind of use this as a shuttle, kind of from B to A or B to C or anything like that. You can use your Phantom as a taxi as well. And as long as you have a decent number of infantry units out on the field, it's a pretty viable strategy. So those are my decks that I have been running with the Arbiter. Honestly, incredibly fun. I really enjoy this leader. I will do a little bit more playtesting, and I will bring you folks some testing with, or some decks with Jerome. I really want to get that right because he's really fun to play with, and the Omega team ability is awesome, and I really want to perfect that and get that working just a little bit better. And I'll show you guys what I've been working with. If you have any other deck strategies for the Arbiter that you have been running, any ways to tweak things, anything that I got wrong, anything that you were confused about at all, anything at all, please do let us know. We always love to hear from you folks. The Halo Wars 2 community has been very, very kind to us. We actually just recently hit 400 subs, and that is an incredible achievement for us because we're just a couple idiots who played video games. So you guys are incredibly kind to us to allow us to do this and have a really fun hobby and interact with the community. So speaking for Doc, I am Slothalopolis with the Average Gamer guys. I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time.